Whoever finds this diary, know that on day 10, I headed out early to complete my mission for the trader. I was still desperately short of items that I needed. Needed a wrench, hammer, backpack, parts for a vehicle. It was day 10 and I was still in very bad shape. I was still infected, which left me delirious at times. But I would keep looking for the cure. Antibiotics, honey. Trained more in my agility to help with the rusty sword that I had. As I was heading towards the mission for the day, I passed by this warehouse I recognized. I knew it had some good materials in it, resources. Things I didn't need right now, but would in the future. Cement, gasoline. And perhaps some other supplies that I could use. But I've definitely marked this on my map. At one point I would need gasoline and cement. At the very top of this warehouse, it was a great place to hide from zombies. The zombies found it difficult to get up to this point. And whoever had hidden up here obviously knew that. I did find another shotgun. It was not as good as the shotgun that I have, but I did find a mod, a barrel extender that I could put on my current shotgun to not only increase the damage it does, but also increase the range slightly. Before I left, I recalled a place where there was a secret stash in this building before the apocalypse. Looks like half the building had crumbled down on top of it, but I knew there was something hidden away in here. So with my stone pick, I went after it. And there it was. I was heading in the right direction. And it turned out it was a good secret stash. I got some storage pockets to help with my carrying capacity. Now I did go on to complete the mission for the day and turned it in, and that mission happened to be the last one for the first tier with that trader. So I took the reward of parts for a bicycle and then headed home and went back to sleep feeling weary due to my infection. Day 11 started with me being determined to get some things done. I had waited too long. I needed a wrench. I needed a blacksmith forge. I needed to get rid of this infection. So I set out hoping to accomplish all of those things. I did have a skill point to spend. So since I was going out to do some mining, I decided to put it into mother lode so I would gather more ore. And I needed everything. I needed iron ore, I needed stone, I needed clay, needed scrap iron. So checking my map, the closest spot where there were iron nodes was to the west. So I would head that way, and then while I was out, I would look for tree stumps, Also get wood for building, crafting. So, like I said, in the end, I needed everything. And the handy dandy iron node got started and proceeded to mine iron, dig clay, mine stone, ended up with some other ores and sand too. But pretty quickly I had enough for my needs. I wanted to make sure I had enough to make the blacksmith forge, and then also have some extra for, say, making a wrench or for some of the other workbenches that I needed. So with the iron ore out of the way, I decided to take a long way home and gather wood logs, watch for tree stumps, gather scrap iron. Unfortunately, I ran into all of these things as I wandered through the wilderness near the city. With carrying all the ore and logs around, I decided to take some steroids so I could carry more. Added 100 to my carry weight, which had gotten a bit higher thanks to the pocket mods I'd made and the pocket mods I looted recently. So I was doing okay for carrying capacity. Actually had a successful power attack with a sword for one of the first times. I'd gone west and then angled south. Ran into a couple zombies. Then off in the distance I thought I noticed something. It looked like white. Possibly snow. I really didn't have time to go all the way to the edge of the biome to see and confirm it was snow, but from here it did look like towards the west southwest that there was a snow biome, which was fantastic. I'd found another biome finally. I really couldn't do much about it at this point, but it was just good to know it was there. I was using a combination of the rusty bent janky sword that I had and the lead pipe. The lead pipe was just better just for straight up damage. The sword did apply the bleed, which helped with damage over time, but if I just wanted brute damage, the pipe was perfect. I looted 3 repair kits out of that car, which is amazing. To make a repair kit, the first thing you need is a tier 2 workbench, I believe. I didn't even have the tier 1 yet, so it was really great to find those. Now you want to use your maintenance bench as much as possible for repairing and save your repair kits for emergencies or maybe when you're out in the field, but it was still just great to find them. I wasn't going to be able to craft them for quite some time. Now while I was wandering around to the west of the city, I came across this trader, and my first assumption was, oh, this must be the trader for my opening new trade routes that I got after I completed the tier 1 quest line or mission line from my trader, but no, this is a completely different trader. Trader Bob or Trader Joel, I'm not sure. But yeah, this was a whole... This is another whole town. So that was interesting. This was a new trader. I decided to go in and loot it. It was only about 2 in the afternoon, so I figured I had time. A really sweet army truck. Those are really great. It was going to be quite a while before I could repair one of those, but I really hope to have one at some point. Looted this furnace and got 28 iron plates. Fantastic find there. That's 56 iron ingots to make 28 iron plates. So really good find. Some other helpful things in the boxes around the trader's base. And he had some ammunitions boxes. More shotgun shells. Weapon I'm using the most right now. And one last ammunition box here. I think it had some 9mm for my pistol, so that was good. Decided to check out what the traders had. I had a good amount of money, but not really anything I was interested in.
Pleasure doing business with you.
I did have a
farewell
improved padded chest armor, but I think it just wasn't high enough an improvement for spending the money, so I passed on it. Now, of course, I wanted to check out this new town, maybe see if there was another biome there, but I really just had to get back, so I just headed straight back, made a beeline back towards the paper mill base. Now, at this point, I was back in my town, but I failed to realize that my steroids were starting to run out. I was down to about a minute left on my steroids, and I would say maybe if at this point I'd gone straight home, I might have made it without the steroids running out, but I wasn't even paying attention, so I was stopping, taking my sweet time, chopping down trees. I'm pretty sure that the amount of weight I was carrying was enough that when those steroids wore off, I was not going to be able to move. Thought I'd check to see if you could scrap washing machines, but you could not. So I took the time to place it back down, pull out my pick, and break it down for scrap iron. And as soon as I finished picking that apart, I went to take a step and I could not move. I can just be thankful that I had one more steroids left, or I would have been stuck there, or would have had to drop a whole bunch of valuable stuff. Anyway, so now that I'd taken a fresh set of steroids, I felt empowered to take my time again for getting home. It wasn't quite 9 yet, and I knew I was already close, so figured I'd grab some of these clay bales for making bricks. Scrap iron. More wood. Not sure if I realized I was actually encumbered even with the steroids at this point, but I guess it didn't matter. I picked up some more meat, some more eggs. I was really in good shape. I mean, I didn't get any missions done today, but I was going to be able to get so much done once I got back to the base. So looking forward to making the blacksmith forge, which I needed to make a wrench. Maybe start making a couple of my other tables, like the mechanics table or mechanics bench, and the what would be next? Munitions table, so I could make my own ammo. And then, of course, with the blacksmith forge, I think I could make the axe that I needed to upgrade my carpenter's table, which I needed to make some better storage. I didn't like the sound of that. That was obviously my buddy, the tourist, somewhere on the other side of that wall. I was encumbered, still infected, and had kind of walked right into the middle of a wandering horde. Got one shot on me as I climbed up. I rushed in, decided to rush upstairs and drop off some stuff first, because fighting while encumbered would really be a pain. So I dropped off some of my heaviest stuff, stones, ore, and then headed down to take on the wandering horde. It was already making its way up. Shooting was a good idea. I could hear them kind of banging on stuff downstairs, so I figured shooting them would get them to focus on getting up here, coming up after me. The zombies that were already low in health, I went ahead and just used the pipe to finish them off. I didn't like hearing that. I always wonder what they're banging on downstairs. And then a cop came in. Haven't faced too many cops yet in this town. But I did know they could spit puke and they can explode, and I managed to keep that cop from doing either. Hearing them banging downstairs, I decided to go down and just try to get their attention. And I did. I could hear footsteps all over the place, so I really wanted to get back upstairs before they surrounded me. I went back to work with my raggedy blade. You hear the roar of that tourist again, but so far I hadn't seen him, so I'm not sure why he hadn't made it up here yet. I hope he wasn't downstairs just taking out walls. Here you can see the zombies climbing up on each other's shoulders and trying to get up over that wall. So now I started to wonder where the zombies were. I mean, there were obviously still a couple down there, and in comedic fashion I could hear them banging around. I'd see them run toward the steps and then run over to take them on, and they weren't there. I mean, I really hate the tourist, but that sounds hilarious when he stumbles and falls over. But I was still kind of confused why they weren't making their way up to me. I was really nervous about exposing myself by climbing down there to see, but now that one made me a little suspicious. She ran up, but she didn't climb up the steps. Okay, here we go. I was ready for the tourist to make his way up. Now when he didn't come up, that pretty much made me realize that there was something wrong. And sure enough, they'd taken out the bottom section of the steps. I hadn't realized yet. So I really needed to get that fixed and get them up here before they tore everything apart downstairs. I realized I had an extra block right here that I could use. But I did not have stone to upgrade it since I dumped it to lower my weight. So grab some stone. Had the block. I was gonna, this was kind of my plan anyway. I wanted to make that lower stair wider and not have a rail on it, because that, you know, the zombies would get stuck on it, or that would cause them to hit it. So I just did the open stair, lined it up, and went to upgrade it, but they were already on it. So I went ahead, headed back up top. Got a bleed on the tourist. And of course, as I was shooting the tourist, I could hear the gun blasts were attracting more zombies. And finally, I don't think it was my shotgun that did it. I think it was the zombies swinging. They took out that door finally, so I didn't have to worry about that door getting in the way anymore. And basically, it was safe. There's no way for the zombies to get up to that balcony where the that door goes out. Right, I cleared it out. There was a... Oh yeah, there's one. There was one more zombie I could hear banging around downstairs. I went ahead and upgraded those steps, and then I took that zombie out. Then went back to work in my workroom. So I had everything I needed to make the blacksmith forge, so I got to work on that. Continued to make more iron ingots for making iron plates, for doing repairs, and that sort of thing. Now, I don't like to set my blacksmith forge on the floor, so I like to give it its own kind of base or stand. So I made some stone blocks to put it on. Now the blacksmith forge is slightly larger than 2x1, so I went ahead and added another half a block. I checked the 3/4 block, but that was just too much. Didn't need that much. Half a block is fine. And there we go. I was so happy. I had my blacksmith forge. And now I checked on making the mechanics bench or mechanics table. That would be next on my list, but I wanted to make sure I could make the wrench first, so I started researching the schematic for making the wrench. I would surely be able to have the materials to actually make a wrench as soon as that blacksmith forge and furnace were done. So I went to sleep preparing for day 12. That night I had another dream about life in the fortress before I was thrown out onto the street. I could see the Duke sitting on his throne with his followers all around him. I couldn't see any of their faces except one, a huge police officer. Before the apocalypse, he was known as Captain Richard, but afterwards, everybody knew him only as Captain Wretch. I had broken the rules of the fortress, and he was the one who had thrown me out onto the street. I had remembered more about my past before being thrown out onto the street, so I was more determined than ever to get to work on upgrading my workbenches, trying to find better weapons, better armor. Eventually I needed to get to a point where I could go attack the fortress and get my family back. But it started with a wrench. I was able to make the schematic for it. Now all I needed to do was make the wrench itself. I'd used all the iron plates that I'd looted yesterday in making the mechanics table and the blacksmith forge. So I needed to smelt some more iron ingots. For that you would use the ingot mold instead of the brick mold. Now you can make iron ingots out of scrap iron or out of iron ore. I recommend not using scrap iron for making the iron ingots unless you really have a lot of scrap iron. The scrap iron has its own uses, so you always want to have a good quantity of scrap iron lying around. Probably the most I've used the scrap iron for is to repair my armor. While the wrench was being made in the blacksmith forge, I went ahead down to the horde base section of the base to upgrade some of the blocks to cement. Made me feel a lot better. It was still a couple days until horde night, so I was making good time getting the base ready for that next wave of horde that would show up. I did it. I finally had a wrench. Day 12, and I had to make it myself. I'd gotten unlucky at looting, so I hadn't looted one. The traders hadn't offered one as a reward, so my only option was to make one. Before I left, I checked my vending machine, and I did have hacker candy, which improved the amount of materials I would get from using my wrench, my new wrench. So I excitedly went down to start wrenching everything I could, everything nearby. I was so excited. With the wrench I would get springs, scrap iron, scrap rubber, all sorts of oil, and one of the biggest things was iron pipes. Pipes that I could use to repair my weapons, to repair my long pipe weapon. I'd also get mechanical parts, which are quite commonly used for upgrading and crafting items. Perhaps I'd even get a chance to upgrade this raggedy ass sword that I had. I did find a bicycle And because I had the skills to repair them, I could see exactly what parts were needed to repair it. At the time, I didn't think I would be able to repair it. I didn't have the skills for making the tires. But later on, I would figure out I only needed one tire to repair that bicycle, and I had actually looted a tire at one point. So I may go back and repair that bicycle yet. Found this oddly exposed loot box sticking out of the wall of a nearby warehouse. Grab that. And by some sort of miracle, one of the first vehicles I looted, I didn't even have to wrench that one, had a small engine in it, which is what I needed to write the guidebook for repairing the mini bike. So just like that, I now knew how to repair bicycles and mini bikes. And I did have the skill to make the mini bike wheel. So really at this point it just became what I would find first or what I would figure out first. Because really at this point I think I could have repaired the bicycle, but I was too excited to go out and start looking for another compact engine in order to repair a mini bike. As I was running around scrapping cars, I noticed that there was a nearby airdrop. Now, I don't usually go after airdrops. Like, if I see an airdrop, I don't specifically go running after it. But it looks like the airdrop was on the way to dig up the treasure for Ileana's locket. So I figured I'd go after those two things. Now, the items I needed for the mini bike weren't too bad, but I did need another compact engine. I don't think I had a battery yet either. Anyway, I headed north past this factory. I'm not sure what that factory was, but found the airdrop. It had some good items in it. The red tea recipe. 53 lockpicks, which are better than the hairpins, and then ranged weapon mods. I decided to leave it in the crate because it only weighed 5 pounds by itself. I didn't know how much it would weigh if I opened it. Continued to wrench vehicles on my way towards Ileana's locket treasure. Did a little merry-go-round with this zombie, and as I turned to attack her, I noticed there were many, many other zombies nearby. I was starting to feel confident in my abilities, so I decided to draw their attention. That was an interesting pose. I had gotten their attention for sure. Now it was just time to figure out how I wanted to fight them. I decided to go for the sword since I was kind of specializing in that. Even though it was about the worst weapon that I had. But at least by having the zombies follow me, if I could hit them with the sword, they would take damage over time. And they might just drop from being dragged around on the street. think I'd gotten all their attention at this point. And maybe even the attention of some other random zombies that were wandering around. The pipe was working well. I did like the continued damage that the sword did. You know, as they're running after me, they're taking damage and bleeding out. One of the zombies, after I killed it, dropped the loot bag. So that meant there really was no running away. I had to stick around here to get that loot bag. Maybe that was somewhat my greed, but definitely not one to pass up. Loot dropped by a zombie. I tried another power attack with the sword, and it seemed like I completely missed the zombie in front of me, but somehow hit the zombie behind that zombie and killed her. Then I tried a power attack again and failed miserably. Missed the power attack, mixed my next regular attack. Good loot in the zombie loot bag. Construction helmet with a headlamp mod to sell. Some red tea to drink. And killing the last zombie in the group got me another level of experience. So I kept on heading north. Oh, I did loot a upgrade to my long pipe in this blue car. I decided not to wrench this blue car. I like the looks of it. If I get the opportunity, I may repair that one. Of course, that's being very, very optimistic. Now, I did start to get nervous as I saw I was heading north towards that body of water that I'd seen earlier running around. Now, I couldn't tell for sure that the treasure map or the treasure was in the water, but I was starting to get very nervous. As I came over the hill and saw the area where the treasure was going to be, I realized there was good news and bad news. The good news is that it didn't look like it was completely under 10 feet of water, but the bad news was it looked like it was under maybe 3 feet of water, enough that I still had to hold my breath to get underwater enough to dig. So this was not going to be easy. Checking the time, it was about 2:45 p.m., so I got to work. As I dug, the water would cause the dirt and sand to cave in, and it didn't take long of digging underwater to have my stamina drop very low, and then also to run out of breath. So it basically became this horrible repetition of dig, 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 run out of stamina, run out of air, swim back up, get air, wait for the stamina to come back. It was horrible. And then every now and then a zombie would catch my scent, and I'd have to take time to get rid of them. The circle for the treasure dropped considerably, but it was already getting to be 4:30 in the afternoon, and it was very slow going. I had no idea if I was digging in the right place. All I knew was the agony of holding my breath, using up my stamina, swimming back to the surface, catching my breath, catching my stamina, going back down, digging underwater. I know I was at least collecting a lot of clay, which was good. I could use that for bricks, but that was about the only silver lining for this whole situation. Now, as I was digging, my shovel broke a couple times, and I started getting hungry, which of course lowered my stamina, which once that happened, I decided I was done. It was 8 p.m. at this point. Now, the ring had gotten a lot smaller, but it was nowhere near small enough for me to know exactly where I needed to dig. So, frustratingly, I left. If I had continued, my ability to dig would have only been reduced due to my stamina being reduced from being hungry, and then I would have just gotten hungrier and hungrier. So basically the day had been spent wrenching a lot of vehicles and getting a lot of materials that I needed. Springs, pipes, scrap iron, oil, mechanical parts. A lot of great stuff had been gained, but I hadn't completed a mission, and I hadn't gotten Ileana's locket, and I hadn't found a compact engine for repairing the mini bike that I'd found. But after getting everything sorted, I went to the research table and made the mechanics table schematic. I had all of the materials I needed to build the mechanics table. It's going to use about half my scrap iron. But that was really the only thing it was using a majority of. I decided I didn't really have enough room upstairs for the mechanics table, so I thought I'd go down to the next level below this little office and put it there. And now having the wrench, there was actually a lot of items within the paper mill base that could be wrenched for needed materials. Resources. Now, the mechanics table probably wouldn't be within range of my transmitting storage boxes, but whatever I needed I could bring down here pretty easily. So I took that moment to relax for the first time in several days. I was still infected, but I had gained a lot with that wrench. I would get back to doing my missions, try to get my loot and ammo and weapons up, and see what the future held. So whoever reads this, know that as of day 13, I was still alive.